Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mupo and Friends. We are,
Emanuela Messina,
and I'm Michelle Mupo.
and we're brought to you by Mupo TV.
And you can catch this show and many others at www.mupotv.com. Or if you want to know more about our company, or even if you're looking for a career in the entertainment industry, I got to tell you, Mupo Entertainment is the place to be. So go to www.mupoentertainment.com and stay tuned, because this show we're going to have next is really going to rock it. You know what? One thing I want to talk about before we even get started is, we have the first issue of the magazine, right?
Yeah.
The first issue. We're coming up with a second issue. So if any of you guys want to advertise in it, this is the place to do it. You want to advertise in the second issue as well as the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, because it will get in the hands of celebrities. So if you have a product that you want to get out and touch a celebrity, Mupo Entertainment is really the place to be. Not to mention the fact that before we go on, I'm going to tell you, we are doing a course on December 13th, and it's called Make It Happen. I'm going to show you just what it took for me, everything. There's 6 easy steps that are going to take you to the next level. And I also have a celebrity guest coming on. So
who?
Yeah, well, let's just say they've trained with Tony Robbins, Dean DeGrazzo, and Joe Dispenza.
Wow. I don't even know this. You kept this secret from me?
So I can't. So
Okay.
you know what the worst thing about it is? Everybody has to join. So because if they don't join, they can't come, because that's in the contract.
And it's 197, right?
It's 197 US dollars.
US. And also, you had mentioned earlier that they can also bring a spouse or a business partner on here as well to take advantage of this course, right?
Yeah. Yes, it has to be a spouse, which would be a husband or a wife. No kids, really. Well, kids can come, but you got to pay for them. Or it could be one of your business partners. Like some people have 2 or 3, some people have 1. But you can't, it has to be legit, because we're going to take it to the next level.
I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. I really can't wait. But we want to say thanks, guys, for joining in to Mupo Entertainment and Mupo and Friends, where we love to bring you all the celebrities you guys want to know about, and also the entrepreneurs you want to hear from. What else do you want to add? What's that?
We also have an app on Android and iOS, which I was personally ready to show you guys. And then I got a phone call and I got sidetracked. But the app, because somebody says, Michelle, show the app. This is the app, guys. Mupo Entertainment. It's on Android and iOS. Okay, you could download it, watch it, cast it out to your TV shows. And if you want to watch Mupo and Friends on Roku or Fire Stick, you go through our Vimeo app, which is Mupo Entertainment. We also have a YouTube page, which is Mupo Entertainment. We're trying to get out there all over the place.
Yeah. And you can see how much we're expanding and growing, and we're getting ourselves to the next level. So make sure you register for our masterclass that's happening in December.
Make it happen.
Get that app on your phone. It's available on Android and iOS. And I'm going to ask you the question, because I have not asked this question to you in a very long time. Did you have a Mupo Awesome Week?
Well, I did have a Mupo Awesome Week. What about you? Did you have a Mupo Awesome Week?
I did. And it's actually snowing up in Canada, guys. It's snowing here.
It's snowing there? So in Jersey, it's not. It's 46 degrees. Yesterday, it was like 70. No, it wasn't 70. The day before that, it was 76. I got to tell you something, though. Okay. What would make it a Mupo Awesome Week? Which I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put it out to the universe, because hopefully Pride of Gypsies on their Instagram. But Jason Momoa coming on board with Mupo Entertainment. You know why? I'm going to tell you. First off, the guy, I drink water differently because of Kimberly Meredith and Jason Momoa. I mean, it's no joke. Like, the two of them got to get together and do something, because Jason Momoa is just real. Like, did you watch the TV series C?
No.
Oh my God.
I gotta get on that.
So he plays a blind man. Okay. And it's on Apple TV.
Okay.
And it is I had to watch it. You know, obviously it's not my type of a thing, but I
Mhm.
watched it and then and I was like, wow, I couldn't stop watching it.
Oh,
Like,
it's a
like
binger.
it's one of those ones that you have to watch like 3 hours at a clip before, you know,
Mm.
and it's, I'd have to say his acting in it, I
Hmm.
just absolutely love him.
All
So,
right.
yeah, no, he's the way he's just so protective of his kids and they're not even his. I mean, you got to watch the show, watch see. And then
Okay.
he also has something brand new on Netflix, which I don't remember the name, but I'm gonna watch that next. So
Oh, Slumberland?
I think it's called Slumberland. Yeah,
Yes, my kids are anticipating to watch that one too. We keep on watching the trailer, so I can't wait to see it too. I think it's
yeah,
coming out at the end of the month, if I
yeah.
recall. So,
Every
all
movie
right.
Jason Momoa does is, it's like, I don't know, there's something about him like he's an angel from God. You know what I mean?
He's an
Because,
intriguing character
well, it's
to
not only
see.
that. Like I've seen an interview of him where he
Mm.
actually, there was a kid that was a little overweight and he was like, "Hello, beautiful. How you doing?" And
Aw,
that like that, because I'm a little overweight, you know. But like, you know,
melts your
it
heart.
no, it did, because I think the kid had cancer and
Oh,
he was like a, I think he was a Make-A-Wish kid. I could be wrong. Uh and Make-A-Wish kid, whatever. But
mm-hmm.
yeah, the fact that he is so down to earth
Yeah.
and you know, and obviously Jason Momoa is not a part of Mupo Entertainment yet, but he will be,
Mm-hmm.
because
Manifesting that one. What
we
you're going
are.
to learn in the class, guys, about manifesting. Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
Yeah, no, I, you know what the funniest thing
Tell
is
me.
that I think he would be a great for our
Addition.
project for even Keep the Peace.
Oh,
Like
yeah. Yeah,
like
I can see
him,
that.
like even Richie Dolan, you know,
Yeah.
I mean the people that I'm thinking, Dee Dee Pfeiffer for certain, because
Mm-hmm.
you know, I would love for her to teach them how to come addictions and stuff. And because she's amazing, Dee Dee
She
Pfeiffer.
is.
She's my favorite girl. I
She's so
just love
down to
her.
earth, that
Did,
one. Yeah.
did you see Big Sky, where like when the guy was breaking into the office and she like went and hid under her desk? Like if that was me, I would have probably hid under my desk and like scream. Like I would have probably got caught. But she was
That's
so
on my
quiet.
list to watch too. I gotta watch Big Sky.
Oh no, you gotta watch Big
I
Sky.
will. It is on my docket to watch, so I will
Every
catch it.
every season gets better, and I love the fact that they kept the girl from what was her name from The Sopranos, and the other guy,
Oh,
her partner, they kept him for this. Like they should be in every episode too, like every season, as well as
mm,
Reba, because Reba is outstanding.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to our interview, guys. I'm really excited about this one.
Yeah, me too. We're going to take a quick commercial break and we will be right back.
Hello and welcome everyone back to Mupo and Friends. And our special guest today is a novelist, screenwriter, speaker, and philanthropist, a former University of California, Santa Barbara basketball player. He changed course when he lost a friend, his best friend, which led him to write his debut novel, Moonflower. His second novel, Darling, You're Not Alone, was released on November 3rd and has also inspired an online letter writing campaign. Please welcome JD Slajchert. Hello, JD. How are you?
Hello, JD.
Oh, thank you for the warm introduction, Mupo and friends. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to dive right into it. But what a lovely, lovely, lovely intro, and I'm honored.
Well, thank you. So we're going to get right into it. And the fans want to know, did you ever put pen to paper outside of school requirements before you wrote your first book?
No, I never. I was sort of just like the last get into class every day.
Typical redhead.
Yeah, like typical redhead, just like, bubble gum chewing, feet up on the desk, didn't really get good grades. So needless to say, when I started writing novels, that was a totally out of left field situation. And yeah, I mean, not to skip too much, but I do think that's an important part to talk about with my story, because I feel like so often writers or people who write books feel like they're kind of untouchable or not for everybody else. And I try to be the opposite. I try to be someone who appeals and writes in a way that anybody can read and anyone can enjoy, and hopefully inspire others that are perhaps interested in writing to not let that veil of sort of perfection keep them from attacking their dreams. So yeah, I do make light of it because I think it is pretty funny, but I also think it's important to share the fact that, yeah, I was like not the one who anyone thought would be writing books one day. So.
And so tell us about Luke Bowden and how he inspired you to write Moonflower.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Luke, it's hard for me to even talk about myself without ever mentioning Luke, because he really was the catalyst and the person who changed my life and sort of took me from that flamboyant, crazy redhead into like someone who started to actually take life really serious. And, I was just a high school kid playing high school basketball at my local Oak Park High School, which is in Southern California where I grew up. And this girl came up to me after one of my high school games and said, "My little brother wants to meet you and play basketball with you." And I was only 17. And so I sort of said, "Sure, like I'll get around to it when I can. I'm kind of a pretty big deal. I don't know if you knew that." And she goes, "No, it has to happen next week." And that's when I asked her why. And she said, "Because my little brother is 6 years old and he has sickle cell disease. And the last thing that he wants to do before he has to go into the hospital for a full year of isolation for a bone marrow transplant is meet you and play basketball with you." And yeah, guys, like that moment, as like I said, at 17, it was so touching and kind of, introspective, and made me think much more beyond myself. So Luke and I just sort of hit it off and became the best of friends. And we had this incredible bond, and he used to come watch me play in college. And my first novel was written in his honor after he passed away from sickle cell disease. So.
Wow. Oh, man.
How did you get the idea for Darling, You're Not Alone actually come about?
Yeah, Darling is so like we already mentioned, it's my new book. It just was published last week. So I've been sort of on the on a lot of coffee and a little bit of sleep these last few weeks. But Darling, You're Not Alone was sort of an idea that I had after traveling to all of these different schools and speaking. Because after my first book, I went on like a pretty large speaking tour where I was talking to high school students, middle school students, even elementary school, and I would tell this story that I just shared with you about Luke. And after each talk I gave, it was the most amazing thing, guys. I would have these kids who would come up to me, and it wouldn't be all of them, maybe one or two per speech type of thing. And they would say to me, "Hey, your story really reminds me of my mom that had cancer and passed away, or my brother who died in a car accident, or my best friend who passed away." And I would get sort of this obviously very heavy, but also almost sort of beautiful remembrance of all these people everywhere I went, from Oakland to Orange County to, I was in New Jersey, which I know you're from, and I was all over the place. And in New Hampshire, where I went to boarding school, I did talks there. And I just kind of had this like catalog of all these, I call them the other Lukes in the world. And I wanted to write a book that sort of remembered and honored kind of all the people we've lost in a way that could not be sort of heartbreaking, but inspiring, and what they would kind of impart to a loved one if they had the chance. And I just had this, this kind of concept for a book that started from that. but I also wanted to build in and incorporate this idea of gun violence, and something I'm, been very passionate about. And, I'm very open about talking about how in this book there is a school shooting that the character endures and survives. And that's sort of the launching point for the rest of the novel. So it was sort of these two colliding ideas I wanted to write about. And it took me quite a bit of time to sort of marry these two concepts in a way that I felt like the story worked. And that's kind of how Darling, You're Not Alone came to be.
And is your protagonist Phoenix, is it based on anybody in particular?
I love Phoenix, number one. I feel like I miss him so much, and I miss getting to write about him every day. But I would say the character of Phoenix is not so much based off of me. Like I don't really identify much with his upbringing in terms of like how he was raised and the events that he goes through. But I do think what I really identify with, and I've shared a lot with, is Phoenix is someone who externally shares and sort of portrays this idea that the world is really a dark place. And the more he looks around and the older he gets, he realizes it's actually even worse than he thought. And I think a lot of people can identify with that, especially at 15, 16 years old, which is when the book begins for Phoenix. But internally, Phoenix sort of has this kind of hope and, I don't know, this sort of idea that he wants to continue to look for the light despite only knowing and seeing this dark side. And I loved kind of, that dichotomy in writing this book of like, I think we all can get negative and beat ourselves up about what, is going on in the world, and how we're sort of constantly dealt these hands of just like terrible news, going on, not even just gun violence, but just tragedy in general. And it does kind of take away from your spark of life that I think is only naturally all of us do deal with. But I love how Phoenix internally throughout the story is sort of hopeful, and he keeps kind of getting up every day and trying to find this light and this reason to go on. And I won't give up too much of like what the answer to that is, but one of the things I really do think, and I totally identify with and share with Phoenix, is like, I believe that those insignificant moments of life where it's the person who, is the clerk at the gas station where you're getting your Diet Pepsi and crackers, or the person who gives you your coffee every morning, and that sort of 15-second interaction is a powerful thing. And I think we accumulate a lot of these moments in life that we feel like are just, in between maybe the events we're doing, but that ends up being sort of the person in the story that shows Phoenix exactly what he's looking for. And I love that. I loved writing about that. I take those little 15-second interactions very seriously. So that's something I have in common with Phoenix.
So do you always, believe that good always wins and light always prevails?
I would say no. That's not exactly what I meant. I would say what I do believe in, though, is that there is, if there's unimaginable darkness out there that exists in the world, then there has to be something that balances it out.
Amen.
And I don't know if it's always an even scale. I wouldn't say it's an even scale. I would say in the end, you end up coming out just right even. And that is a beautiful, amazing thing. And I think we just do tend to focus on this negative and catastrophic bad that happens constantly. That my message, and I'm trying to impart through writing this story, was if you keep going and you keep battling, you end up kind of getting these blessings you never anticipated. And those are miracles too, and should be, those are equally as unimaginable. Yet sometimes we just don't attribute them to the same thing. So.
And how do you believe in the light when you're in your darkest days?
I think that's a great question. It's funny. I was in yoga this morning, which is a daily occurrence for me lately, to help me sort of balance out the kind of
Your
craziness
chakras?
of just of like releasing a book and and all the colliding thoughts and trying to remember like all the reasons you wrote this thing for years. And this thought really occurred to me that sort of, I think, may answer your question is, writing for me while I was working on this novel, it's hard to explain, but I do feel like when I do write and sit down and work on these types of stories, I'm able to sort of harness and capture those 15 seconds of really beautiful bliss, you could call it, of my past, and like replay them for hours and hours in my head, to the point where that's what I'm writing about in the story. And so to answer your question, what helps me, remain positive and see the light despite my darkest moments? I think really writing. I think really working on books like this, and hopefully trying to, almost like transport that beautiful memory that I have and I only experience myself, or maybe with a friend or a family member, into a book where then people could one day read it and pick up that same level of hope that I had. And I think that kind of like theory and message is incredible, guys. Like one of my favorite passages of the book is this parable about 3 bricklayers. And you ask 3 bricklayers, what are you doing? The first one says, I'm laying bricks. The second one says, I'm building a house. And the third one says, I'm creating the church of God. The first bricklayer has a job. The second bricklayer has a career. And the third bricklayer has a calling. And I talk about that because I really feel like I don't really identify as a writer. I think of myself as someone who's trying to spread hope through the books I'm writing in hopefully a way that can help people that are maybe dealing with that darkness themselves. But yeah, I think that's how I deal with it, is just trying to share positivity as much as possible in the books I write.
It's beautiful.
So tell the audience, I should say, about the letter writing campaign that actually ties in with the book.
Yeah, for sure. So Darling, You're Not Alone has a massive letter writing campaign element to the story. And that was something that I worked really hard on incorporating and kind of building into the plot. But letter writing is something that is a big part of my life outside of this book. I've been writing letters to friends since I was 14 years old. And it's something I've really enjoyed. And it kind of did become the origin to my career as a writer too. So when, I created this book, and my team that kind of was helping me with the release of it discussed this idea of like, hey, how cool would it be to sort of take what is a fictional story, but give it some nonfiction element to speak towards something that can exist outside and beyond the book. So the You Are Not Alone letter writing campaign is a campaign where after people complete the book, we ask them to take a second themselves to go ahead and write a letter to their mom or their friend or their brother, and start it as the first sentence. They just say, you're not alone. And then from there, almost just wrap it up into just a message that you want to send someone, because, it's not so difficult to do that. And I think the world would be a much better place if we all just took the time to maybe write that note to someone, or, share like a memory or whatever it may be. And then obviously the hope would be that one person then goes and writes a letter to their someone, and then they write a letter to someone, and it sort of creates this ripple effect of good in the world. And yeah, I think it's a really simple concept. It's really not complicated, but I do think it's also in a world where we have emails and texts, and we're constantly dealing with technology, to escape that and write a letter, I think would be pretty cool.
It's kind of like our Keep the Peace project. We ask people to do a good deed every day for the next 30 days. And hopefully on the 31st day, they're going to continue to do it without being reminded. So, it's a redhead thing, I think. But we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with our special guest.
Okay, welcome back to Mupo and Friends with our guest, J.D. Slajchert. So when you use music to inspire your writing, Is there a particular genre that's always your go-to?
Well, I would say artist Bon Iver. He is someone that I listen to actually daily. I have a record player in my office, and every day before I kind of start my day, I put on the album For Emma Forever Ago. And I listen to it as sort of like a meditation to start my day where, I don't do anything but just kind of relax. And it's a 45-minute album. But yeah, he's someone that has carried through, Moonflower. And then I listen to him a lot while writing Darling, You're Not Alone. And I think he'll kind of always be a staple musician and band of mine that carries into each project. But I actually curate and create playlists that only exist in my life for a specific project. And then once the book is complete, I don't listen to any of that music anymore. And I'm very like disciplined with that, because I think when I hear certain songs, I sort of attribute them to the project themselves. And I want to sort of, I kind of justify it in my own head as like harnessing the creativity that exists from each composition to the project I'm writing. And so I won't like listen to that while I'm driving or, doing or flying or doing anything else. So I can just save it for when I'm writing that book. And I have like a third project in the works that I have a playlist for, and man, like I really miss the songs from that playlist. And I always find myself like thinking about them again, but I won't listen to them until I start working on it. So.
And what fictional book has taught you the best real life lesson?
Wow, that's a great question. And that's something I actually do think about a lot, because I always make the argument that great fiction is like the vitamin in the cake, where, you know what I mean? Like you read it and you just enjoyed the story, but you didn't realize you took something from it that's actually applicable to life. So I really think that great fiction has that capability. But I think the best fiction book I took, I mean, it's really the book that inspired me to become a writer, is Paper Towns by John Green. I'm obsessed with that book. I read it in college, and I was really like impressionable in terms of like who I was becoming. And I don't know, just like the spontaneity and the freedom of which that book is written, I think sort of showed me the limits to which as a writer you can push to create a story. And when I was reading it, I really didn't feel like it was something that, again, I think it goes back to what I was saying about how books can be thought of as for them, not for us. And if you're like a voracious reader, you must be really smart. And I used to think that growing up. But when I read Paper Towns, and this is, I don't mean this offensively to John Green. I actually am his biggest fan, but I could feel like anybody could read that book and enjoy it. And that sort of taught me how, wow, I could do something similar to this too. And yeah, I've been sort of chasing that energy and harnessing that ever since. And that was, almost 10 years ago. So
what do you mean by make sure your store is always open?
That's funny. That's very funny you asked me that. Well, my dad, who's like my best friend, we work in the same office together. So he has kind of his company that exists alongside of it. And then I kind of branch out, and I have the place where I write and, answer emails and get ready for speeches and things. And that's something that he always says is keep your store open. And it's sort of become like the mantra for just like, rain or shine, any day, you don't feel like getting up, or that might be the day that you have like the biggest break of your career. So always keep your store open, rain or shine. And I don't know, it's just become like an inspirational sort of saying we use. And also one that we like jab at each other with, like if he's out of town, I'll like just text him. I'll be like, hey, the store's open. Like, I don't know if you're here, but, and yeah, we get texts from each other like that. It's pretty funny.
That's so cool.
And you always write in longhand, like in your first draft. Right. Why is that?
Yeah, well, there's a variety of reasons I do that. Number one, I think when I'm typing, you often find that your mind gets ahead of yourself. Like you can work too quickly in terms of like the speed at which you can put words down. So I would argue that, typing isn't really writing. Like it's sort of just a different version of thought. So when I'm handwriting, that forces me to almost like slow down to a really rote and monotonous pace that makes me very, meticulous about each word I select. And I'm kind of more caught up in my story in the sense when I am handwriting it. So it helps me. It slows me down to that pace that I think is best for me creatively. But then I also think that more simply, it's a way to escape technology. So like, we already talked about the musical element for me, right? Like once that song or that playlist comes on, the phone goes as far away from me as possible, the laptop's shut, and it's just me and the pencil and paper. And it's a really like, it's meditative. Like it's so freeing, because I do think we've, become accustomed to being so in touch with everyone constantly that's my time when I really step away from technology. And then the other one, which I think is really important too, is you can physically like see your progress you're making in writing your book. And, so many people want to write books or talk about it. And when you're typing it in a laptop, I think you kind of hit more walls because, you can't physically see your progress you're making, like how many pages you've already put down. And to have a handwritten copy and to literally see like, wow, I'm 150 pages into this thing is a really motivating thing. And it's just a little added boost. And I would say lastly, God forbid technology fails, boom, like here's your hard copy. So there's a lot of reasons why I do that.
That's amazing. And the kinetic energy from writing, right, on paper versus computer is huge. That's awesome. So what is the biggest roadblock you've had in your path so far, and how did you overcome that? That's a loaded question.
Yeah. Biggest roadblock. I mean, there's certainly been a lot. I no road is easy. I'm sure you guys can relate to that with your show or your own career paths and everything you guys have done. I think to be successful in entertainment, you've dealt with no's and critical roadblocks constantly. That's sort of the name of the game. But
my no is yes. So
for
the record, when you say no to me, it's yes.
Yeah, exactly. I think as I kind of think about what my biggest roadblock is, I would say I'll answer how I overcame it first. I would say it just brings me back to my career as an athlete. Like I was, undersized at one point. I'm 6'6" now, but I used to be the undersized allergy redhead kid who just loved basketball. And I was just happy to be on the team. And I had this sort of passion for the game that caught up with skill late. So as I got to college and was playing at the Division I level, you constantly deal with, you're talking about fans that are yelling obscenities at you and going into hostile environments, and then you get hurt and you're injured and you got to rehab an injury. Division I sports is brutal. And once I got out of that and went into the entertainment industry, I think I was more like equipped to deal with, critical reviews of my work or people turning it down or any of that, because I just didn't even let it faze me. And I just like kept going to the next thing. But yeah, I think that helped me a lot. And I think my biggest roadblock, I would say my biggest roadblock was, and I think this is very common, and I've actually spoken to other writers about this as I was sort of warned about it, is overcoming your first book. A lot of people say, to write a book is hard. And once you do that, you're sort of, in it. I really don't think that's true. I think once you get your second done, that's truly the hurdle that most writers don't overcome, because you put so much into that first one that you kind of can, easily fall down a hole where you just fall in love with that and you don't ever want to revisit the blank page again. So to like steel yourself and build yourself up to get writing again, I think was harder than I thought it would be. And I'm glad I overcame it. So
tell us how the doubters in your life motivate you to move forward.
I love it. There's a quote, I don't know who said it. So I don't want to take credit. This is not my words, but it was, I actually don't know if I like winning or losing more. And I love that. I think that's an incredible way to live because, yeah, in a sense, like it's almost the doubters that give you more fuel. Like when everything's going right, you're kind of, you know, it's hard to keep going because you feel like you've already achieved whatever it is that is possible. But when you start getting those no's, I think that's when you know, like I always say, that's when you know you're actually asking the right questions or going for the big enough goals, when you start getting turned down or you know, people forget. But I think people have been doubting me my whole life. Like I said, I think I've sort of lived in that place of being the slept on, you know, undersized and not talented person. And I love that like chip on my shoulder. Like I really don't want to lose that. And I think the more people that remind me of that, the more inspired I get to keep going and to keep finding different ways. And it's one that I take a lot of pride in, you know, being that I've come from a place where, you know, I've had a lot of successful breaks and a lot of great opportunities, and I have an amazing, I can't say this enough, I have an amazing support system around me, like my family, my friends. Like I'm very, very fortunate, so don't misunderstand how I feel like I was, you know, brought up or raised. But I do think in terms of the loftiness of my goals, I had a lot of people that shared with me, hey, like maybe you should temper those and like go for something more achievable. But I never cared. I never cared to hear that.
I love that. So that just made me very happy. But, we're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back.
Back with JD. So what are some simple ways you can lead with love?
Lead with love. I think that's easy. I think it's easier than most people think. I think you just have to, like one of the things I try and pride myself on in that category of life is having a great memory. Like I try, and when people tell me like that book, the Paper Towns book by John Green, that I loved and sort of really and kind of lit the fire for me to become a writer. It was recommended to me by a good friend, and she just mentioned it in passing as like, yeah, I really want to read this book one day. And, you know, 2 months later, I was like, you know what, I'm going to buy 2 copies of that and give her one, and I'm going to read it too. And here I am. I think it's little things like that kind of do go unnoticed. And I think, look, I'm guilty of it still to this day. Like people will remind me of things and I'll forget. And we're busy. Everyone's busy. Everyone's got a million things going on. So I try and write things down. Like whenever I see a friend and they mention, hey, my birthday party's in 2 weeks or whatever it may be, or, you know, I love that shirt you're wearing or whatever, anything. I keep like little notes of these things in a book. And so when holidays or birthdays come around, I actually have an idea of what might be a great gift or something, because that all comes back, you know, tenfold to you. Then you're met with this incredible warmth down the road, and they tend to focus more on what you're saying. So I would say maybe I'd rephrase that to not have a good memory, but just be a good listener. When people talk, take the time to actually try and hear what they're saying, because you should get to know the people that are in your lives, because it's appreciated. So I think that's an easy way to lead with love, is just be a good listener when people are talking.
Beautiful.
And in addition to, basketball, what other sports do you play well? Because I have a feeling you play more than one sport well, only because you're a redhead.
Yoga.
Okay. Anything else? Like,
No. So what's funny about that is, I mean, to any of my buddies out there listening, they'll probably already laughing as you ask that question, because I was notorious for being, like a great basketball player, but horrible at every other sport. I mean, we do.
Really?
Oh my God,
Really?
like it was pretty embarrassing. We do a kickball fundraiser for the Luke Strong Foundation, which is named after my friend of mine that passed away from sickle cell disease, because kickball was his favorite sport. So every year we all get together and play kickball at this park. And it's like a comedy show when I'm up to kick, because I'm so bad. I like miss the ball and fall on my face every year. And it's pretty strange how, for being a former athlete, how bad I am at sports. So I think we should just skip that question altogether.
Okay, we'll go into this one then. So as a philanthropist, what are the other charities that are really close to your heart?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, the Luke Strong Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that supports children that are diagnosed with sickle cell disease. It's named after, my best friend, Luke Bodden, and I'm the director of relationship development for that foundation. So I go out and raise funds, but also, meet with kids in the hospital and do all sorts of things in that way to help what is a severely underfunded and underknown illness, because it's a 95% African-American disorder. So a lot of people that aren't directly impacted by it don't know about it. And I was ignorant to that myself. Growing up, I didn't even heard of sickle cell disease until I met Luke. So a big part of my advocacy is talking about this illness that, most people don't know about, or most people that aren't African-American don't know about. In the African-American community, it's very well known. And then another foundation I'm very close with is the American Red Cross. I'm a national ambassador for the American Red Cross. And I started working with them actually after my home burned down in the Woolsey fire in Malibu, which was a pretty catastrophic situation, but has led me to some incredible bonds and friendships with the Red Cross. And my fellow Red Crossers and I are very close. And I just had the launch party for my novel last week, as I mentioned, and I had the Red Cross all in there, and that was pretty special to see all those people. So I'm still, in close lockstep with them. But what's interesting is they also have the Red Cross is sort of split into two factions. They have their disaster relief kind of wing, but then they also have their blood and blood related relief. And being that with losing my house in the fire, I'm attached to that disaster relief, but also with my story involving Luke and sickle cell disease. I've worked with both sides of the Red Cross, so I'll continue to do that. And then also Be the Match is an incredible foundation that matches potential donors to people that are in need of bone marrow transplant, which is what Luke had. And so I've done some work with them, not quite as much as the Red Cross or Luke Strong, but Be the Match is another great foundation too.
That's incredible.
And besides climbing Mount Everest, what else is on your bucket list?
Yeah, Everest is a big one. I really want to do that. I would say bucket list aside from Everest is, I'm passionate about a couple other the stories that I have sort of circulating in my head right now, and one of them is a trilogy project. And I don't have too much to say on it because it's so fresh and so it's such a long ways from being released. But I guess as I envision that project, Michelle, I just think like I want that to speak towards the vision I set out to write. Like I think I want to be in a place in my career. I guess this is maybe answering your question more directly. I want to be in a place in my career where I've had and achieved the highest heights of commercial success, which I think is amazing, and I'm gearing towards that, to have the freedom to write things that are as artistically freeing as I want to one day, and have like a very critically acclaimed piece that maybe isn't the most commercial, but matches the vision I set forth to write it with. So as I sort of build in my career and write more books, I want to also work on some things that are maybe like a little bit more artistic in that way.
Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back with the conclusion of our interview.
Again, 1, 2, 3. We are back with JD. And before we wrap things up here, we have one last question for you. Since you said you're fascinated with the small things in life, what is the smallest thing that has happened that gave you the biggest impact?
This is the best question ever. I'm so excited to tell this story. I've never shared this publicly, so this is amazing.
Okay.
So,
Whoa, and it's on
It's
Mupo
so
and
good.
Friends.
it's on Mupo. You're gonna love this. This is just, oh my God, my heart is singing right now as I think of this.
Oh, love it.
So when I was in college at UC Santa Barbara, I was a part of this. I was in a psychology class, and a part of the class was outside of that actual lecture hall. We would have to go and participate in like these studies that, you know, upper division students were doing for their psychology major. So I signed up for this study, and the study was all about your relationship to inanimate objects. So when you walked in to do this study, they give you an item, and my item was this little purple stamp, and it was like a 10-cent little piece of plastic, and it had a little star on it, and you set it like right beside your laptop as you answer these questions. And the questions were, it was really interesting. They said, like, what if I told you that this little stamper was there in your worst moment of your life and it helps you get through it? And then what if I told you that this little stamper was given to you by your best friend and you haven't seen them in years, and now this is all you have? And you go through like this list of all these questions.
Wow.
And then you complete the thing, and the survey. And as you're walking out, the person says, "Okay, thanks for participating," and you have to give the item back to the person. And I was like dumbfounded. I said to the guy, I said, "Man, I don't know if this is a part of the study or not, but I need this stamper. And after all the things you've just told me, it gave me." And he goes, "I'm sorry, man. Like, it's not a part of the study. Like, I need it for the next group." And I said, "Man, like, I will pay you $100 for this thing." And he eventually just said, "You know what? You can keep it. You don't need to pay me." And this was like 10 years ago. I take this stamper with me everywhere I go. It's sitting like in my bedroom, across the hall to this day. So I cannot believe how much power I've put into that little thing. But yeah, I'm gonna have that for the rest of my life. So
Nice.
That's incredible. I love that. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure visiting with you today.
And you can follow, like, and subscribe to JD Slajchert on Twitter at JD_Slajchert, on Instagram at JD_Slajchert, and on Facebook under JD Slajchert, on YouTube under JD Slajchert, and at his website, jdwritesbooks.com. And as always, thank you for tuning into Mupo and Friends, courtesy of Mupo TV. And you could catch this show and many others at www.mupotv.com. That's www.mupotv.com. And you could catch us also on Roku, Fire Stick, Vimeo, YouTube, Facebook, and make sure you download our apps on Android and iOS. And don't forget to get the magazine. And JD, hold up your book. Everyone needs to order this book.
Go get it, folks. Out now, darling, you're not alone. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, my website, where books are sold, wherever I'm at, find me. I'll probably have a copy. I'll give you one. Yeah, the book is, I think it's a really inspiring one, but Mupo Entertainment is an amazing place too. So make sure you also go and check them out, guys.
Oh, thank you.
so much. This is Emanuela Messina with our host, Michelle Mupo. And until next time.
Have a Mupo awesome week.